This video covers review 10 problems 1 through 10. So problem 1 asks us to write the function of a line that includes 2 points. Anytime we have 2 points, we're going to put those in stat edit. Remember that your points need to be directly across from each other. Do not mix them up. So on my calculator on the left side over here, I'm going to go stat edit. I'm going to enter my x's in L1 and my y's in L2, and I press enter every time I put in a number, and then stat, scroll to calc, option 4, enter, and my function of the line would be 2.5x minus 1. You might also see this as the fraction 5 halves. Remember, to turn that into a fraction, I would type 2.5 math enter to get that fraction. Problem 2, we have a graph of a line that has these 2 points. They want a new line that is parallel. So in order to figure out parallel, I need to steal the slope. So I have 2 options. I can try to figure out what the slope is on this, but I'm kind of having trouble seeing exactly where it crosses. Or I can use my stat edit again to see where my points are, so -3, 2, and -1, -4, and have the calculator calculate the slope for me. So -3, -1, and to -4. So stat calc 4, enter, and my slope from stat edit is -3. So a parallel line will have the same slope, -3, and then goes through this point. So this is my x1, y1. Remember, when we have a point and a slope, we're going to plug into point slope. So y minus y1 equals that m, same exact slope as my picture, and then x minus x1. If they wanted you to solve this for y, we would distribute, so -3 times x, -3 times -1, and add 2 to both, so -3x plus 5. Both of these are acceptable answers, and you could be asked either one on your test. Problem 3, they ask us to solve the system below. Remember, in parentheses is the suggested way to solve these, because we are trying to get you to know the best, fastest way, or what it might look like on your test, the easiest way. But if you don't want to do graphing, you are free to do matrices or substitution. This one is set up for substitution, but on your test there might be a graph. So in order to graph, we need to take the top equation and solve it for y. So I'm going to move 3x to the other side, and then divide to get y completely by itself, so y equals 3x plus 4. So I have 2 options. I have a grid here that I can graph, or I can put these two into y equals. Doesn't really matter which way you do, 3x plus 4 and 3x plus 4, but I want to show you either way that you choose. So I can put y1, y2, so I'm putting 3x plus 4 and 3x plus 4, or I can go up to 4 to start, and then up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1. No matter which way you choose, whether you graph it by hand on the grid like with graph paper, or if you choose a calculator, you will notice there is only one line. So with this line and this line being exactly the same, my solution is infinitely many, because they are the same line. So remember, if you have a line that is exactly the same, y1 and y2 are exactly the same lines, then your solution is infinitely many, because they cross everywhere. Also, if you were to look at your table is exactly the same for y1 and y2. Problem 4 wants an equation parallel to the y-axis that goes through the point 5, -2. So I always just draw my little grid. 5, -2 goes to the right and down. Doesn't have to be exact. This is just a sketch. Parallel to the y-axis. Parallel means same. So it is the same as the y-axis. The y-axis goes up and down, so this goes up and down. Up and down is a vux because this is vertical. So my slope of a vux is undefined. That's what the U in vux stands for. And my equation is going to be the x in vux. So x equals the x from my point. So x equals 5. Problem 5, two lines have the given equation. What point satisfies both? And the suggested method here is matrices. So remember, with matrices, I need to set up x, y equals answer. So in my top equation, x is 2, y is -1, and my number is 1. Bottom equation, x is 3, y is -1, and number is -6. So these are already set up for matrices. So over here in my calculator, I'm going to click second matrix, scroll to math, scroll up to B, enter, and then alpha zoom. I want a 2 by 3, and OK. And then with these, every time you enter a new number, you have to click the right arrow. Remember, if you click enter, it will do the really rapid equation fixer on all of the numbers that you have currently put in. So 2, -1, 1, 3, -1, -6. These match all of the numbers, including the negatives. So I click enter. And from the calculator, I get 1001, -7, -15. So my solution is -7, -15, because solutions are written x, y, and that's my x and my y. Problem 6 asks us to write the function and graph the line that has a slope of -4/3 and contains the point -6, 2. So my equation, because I have a point and a slope, I can write in my equation y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And remember, x1 is negative, so minus a negative is really a plus. My other option is to plot my point, which is -6, 2, and then use my slope to continue the line. Either of these methods are acceptable, so -4/3 means go down 4/3, down 4/3. And with either method, if I wanted to take this, I could distribute and solve for y, or I could see here that my b value is a -6, so if you needed, in slope-intercept form, you could solve this one by distributing -4/3 and then adding 2, or from this way, plotting your point and using your slope, you could see that it crosses a b value of -6. Okay, problem 7, again, recommended for graphing in order to see this the best, but you can solve whatever method you want. In order to graph on the top one, I would need to solve for y, so I subtract x from both sides and divide everything by 2. So if I wanted to graph by hand, I would start up at 5 and go down 1, right 2 a couple of times. And I'm going to graph the second equation. Alternatively, I could plug these in. So -1/2 x plus 5. And my original one that I did not have to change, -1/2 x plus 3. So in my calculator, I can hit graph, or like I said, I can continue graphing by hand. It is completely up to you which one you prefer. But I can see from my graph and from the graph on my calculator that these lines are parallel. If you notice, they have the exact same slope. So my solution for parallel lines is no solutions. So written on your test would probably be the words no solution, but the 0 with the line is also acceptable. Just make sure you know that these mean the same things, and it's no solution because these are parallel lines. Okay, a couple more problems for this video. 8 says if x comma 4 is the solution to the system, what is the value of x? So what they're giving me here is a y value. Now I have two options for this problem. I can take this problem as is and plug it into matrices to get my x and my y, or I can substitute in a value of 4 in either one for y. So I could do it for the top equation or the bottom equation, and then just solve for x like normal. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract 20 from both sides. And divide by 4 to get that x is -3. You could take this one and plug in 4 for y, and you would get x is -3 for both. Or if you wanted to see, I'll try to do it really quickly so I don't waste your time. I have 4, 5, and 8, and 2, -3, -18. If you wanted to plug these into matrices, they're giving you the 4, they want the -3. So it's completely up to you, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Problem 9 says some values for two linear equations are shown. What is the solution to the system represented by these tables? So when we see tables, the first thing you need to do is check both tables for a shared point. So when I look at -2, I have a -2 over here, so I'm going to see if my y's are the same. And oh my gosh, it was the very first one I checked. This point is exactly the same in both tables. Now notice it's different, like 8 is over here, but there's no 8 over here. 2 is over here, there's no 2 over here. 6 is over here, there's no 6 over here. So you are looking for an exact point that is exactly the same between both tables that they both share, and that is your solution. Alternatively, you could plug both of these into stat edit, get both of your equations, plug both of your equations into y equals, and see where they cross or where they're exactly the same on the table, but that would be wasting your time because you can see it pretty clearly right here. Last problem for this video, problem 10, write an equation in point slope form that represents a table below and uses the point to -2. So they want this in point slope form. Remember, that looks like this. We've used it a couple times on this review already. So I'm going to label x1, y1. So when I'm plugging in x minus y1 is -2, equals m, which we'll have to find, and then x minus x1 Okay, now notice I'm missing that m, so in order to find m, I'm going to use stat edit and let the calculator do that for me. So I'm going to go back to stat edit. I'm going to type in these numbers exactly like I see them, pressing enter after each entry. Whoops, I did not press enter after each entry. Okay, and then stat calc 4, enter, 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 and remember m is the same thing as a, so my m is 1/2, so 1/2 goes here. Now the only extra thing we could do would be to clean up this minus minus, which is really a plus because you would not see something with minus minus on your test.